Hi, I'm Aria. And my sister? She texted the family group chat. We'll prioritize my mother-in-law's birthday, not your wedding. I just smiled and typed back one word. Got it. What she didn't know was that I owned a $9 million oceanfront villa. And what no one saw coming was who showed up to celebrate with me. But before the photos, before the silence, there was a family that twisted love into control, and a woman they thought would stay quiet forever. They were wrong. Tell me, have you ever been treated like a footnote in your own life? Because this is how I stopped being theirs. Art. I left the office later than I meant to, the kind of evening when your shoulders feel heavier than the bag you're carrying. The coastal air in San Clemente had that golden tint it gets right before sunset, the kind that softens everything except your thoughts. I sat in my car for a moment, letting the engine hum settle me, then pulled out onto El Camino Real. Traffic moved slowly, which was fine. Slow gave me space to breathe. At a long red light near the pier, I finally checked my phone. The family group chat was lit up with message bubbles. I expected something small, someone sharing a recipe, or my mom asking who was available to help her with a doctor's appointment. Instead, at the top of the thread, I saw Taryn's message. We'll prioritize my mother-in-law's birthday, not your wedding. My thumb froze on the screen. For a second, I wasn't even angry. It felt more like someone tapped an old bruise I'd almost forgotten was there. A quiet pressure, deep and familiar. Another message followed a moment later, her tone breezy, as if she were discussing weekend plans instead of tossing aside the most important day of my life. It just makes more sense for everyone. I stared at the light turning green, not moving until a car behind me gave a polite honk. I drove on, letting the words echo in my head. My sister's confidence, her certainty that my life could be rearranged like a grocery list. And the strangest part was how unsurprising it felt. I whispered into the empty car, "Of course you will." But in the chat, I typed only 2 words. Got it. I sent it before I could think too long, then tossed the phone onto the passenger seat as if it had bitten me. Those 2 words sat in my chest with the weight of something I didn't want to examine yet. When I got home, the sky was turning a deeper orange, the ocean breathing steadily beyond the backyard. I parked in the garage and stepped inside, letting the quiet wrap around me. This house, my oceanfront villa, had always been my refuge, the one part of my life I didn't offer up for commentary or judgment. I'd bought it after years of consulting work that no one in my family had ever asked about. They preferred to believe I just got lucky. Maybe it was easier for them that way. As I headed to the kitchen, my phone buzzed. Again. I ignored it for a moment, poured a glass of water, then finally picked it up. A message from my sister. BTW, I forgot to add Mikael to the invitation list. Total oversight. I'll fix it later. I set the phone down slowly. Forgetting my fiancé wasn't a tiny mistake, not from her. It was one of those moves wrapped in innocence, coated in convenience, delivered with a tone that dared you to question it. Another message rolled in from my brother, Rowan. Yeah, the venue's already booked anyway. Taryn's MIL loves that place. A hollow laugh slipped out before I could stop it. Of course they chose that venue. I recognized the name immediately. Years ago, when the owner had been struggling, I'd quietly invested enough money to help her keep the doors open. My family had never known. I hadn't thought it mattered then. I guess it mattered now. I leaned on the counter, letting the quiet sink in. Patterns. That was all this was. Patterns repeating themselves. Birthdays of mine they'd forgotten until midnight. Family dinners where I was asked to be flexible because someone else needed a favor. Bills covered with my money but credited to someone louder. And always the same reminder. You're the youngest. You understand. Yes, I understood. more than they ever realized. I moved into the living room, switching on a small lamp. Warm light filled the space, catching the edges of the framed photos on the shelves. Landscapes, quiet beaches, nothing with family. That absence said more than any argument I'd ever avoided. My phone buzzed again. Casual messages now. No one asking if I was okay with their decision. No one noticing the silence stretching from my end. My mother even chimed in. "We'll make it up to you, sweetie. You know how these things go." Yes, I knew. That was the problem. I walked toward the sliding glass doors and stepped onto the patio. The air was cooling, the breeze brushing against my skin in a way that steadied me. The ocean moved with the kind of calm I wished I felt. I lifted my phone and took a picture of the sunset, the kind of view people save for postcards. I didn't send it to anyone. I saved it quietly, as if it was a small secret between me and the horizon. For a moment, I focused on my breathing. In, out, slow, controlled. I wasn't the girl who cried in her room anymore. I wasn't the young woman who twisted herself into knots to keep everyone else comfortable. I had grown past that. Back in the kitchen, I opened the drawer where the save-the-date cards were tucked away. Elegant, simple, something Mikael and I had chosen together with a kind of joy that now felt distant. I touched the stack, then pulled my hand back. "They made their choice," I murmured. "I'll make mine." The room felt different when I said it out loud, heavier, but also clearer. The silence in the kitchen lingered long after the words left my lips. I didn't move right away, just stood there, hands resting on the edge of the counter, staring at the fridge like it might offer me some kind of answer. The hum of the appliances, the soft tick of the wall clock, the distant crash of the waves, they all seemed louder than usual, as if they were filling the space my family had emptied. Sleep came in pieces that night, fragmented and shallow. By the time the sky began to hint at morning, I was already sitting at the edge of my bed, robe wrapped around me, phone in hand. The screen lit up with the remnants of the group chat. I knew I shouldn't open it again, but I did. I mean, Taryn's mother-in-law deserves the priority. She's turning 70. Arya's wedding is just going to be small, right? She won't mind. She always understands. Each message landed like a pebble to the gut, tiny but persistent. I scrolled back up, watching my own two-word response blink back at me. Got it. They had taken those words as permission, not pain. I opened the family calendar app, something we all had access to but rarely used seriously. Except Taryn. She'd always used it to make her claims official. Sure enough, my wedding weekend had been replaced. Erased, really. In its place, a bright, cheerful block labeled Mill's 70th, Family Dinner and Beach Weekend. Just like that, no message, no check-in, just gone. I blinked. This wasn't new. I'd seen this trick before. My mind pulled up a scene I hadn't thought about in years, like a reflex. It was a hot spring afternoon in Pasadena, 12 years back. I'd just finished a grueling semester and received the university's recognition for academic excellence, top of my cohort in the graduate program. The ceremony was originally scheduled for Saturday, but when Taryn called, irritated that it clashed with her husband's parents' visit, she asked me to reschedule. "You know they only come into town once a year, Arya. Can't you shift it?" So I did. I moved the attendance time to Friday evening. No reception, no department dinner, just the award, handed to me quietly in an administrative office. Taryn didn't show. Later, she claimed she forgot. No apology, just, "Things have been crazy." That was her line. It always had been. I remember standing alone outside the building that evening, holding the certificate in one hand and my coat in the other, thinking, did I really think she'd come? The ache I'd buried resurfaced now, sharper than I expected. I wrapped my robe tighter and stood, moving into the kitchen again. The sky outside had lightened, but the air inside still felt heavy. I poured myself coffee and leaned on the island. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation. What I wanted, what I had always wanted, was to be seen without having to scream for it. Still holding my mug, I stepped outside onto the terrace. The ocean was muted in the early light, all soft blues and silvers. Normally, this view calmed me, but this morning it only reminded me of what they didn't know, what they had never bothered to know. This house, my work, my fiancé, all of it apparently worth less than someone else's mother-in-law's birthday. I went back inside, cleaned the kitchen out of habit. It was a coping mechanism. When my hands were busy, my mind could sort through the mess. I wiped down the already clean counters, straightened a stack of unopened mail, and then I asked myself the question I hadn't dared to say aloud before. Why does my peace always come last? The words landed hard. I felt them settle deep. I remembered something Mikkel had told me once during a quiet dinner at home. You never take up space, Arya, not even when you've earned it. Back then, I laughed it off, but this morning that line felt less like a statement and more like an indictment. I picked up my phone and dialed my mother. Not to fight, just to understand. Maybe she'd say something that would shift this weight off my chest. She answered on the third ring, her voice warm but distracted. Sweetheart, hi, is everything okay? I just wanted to ask something, I said gently, about the plans for the weekend. She paused, then sighed. Honey, your wedding will be simple. Taryn's event is important to the whole extended family. You understand, right? There it was again. Simple. That word that always landed like a velvet-wrapped slap. Harmless on the surface, dismissive underneath. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice even. Okay. That's my girl, she said, unaware of how much that stung now. You've always been the one who gets it. I ended the call soon after, politely, calmly. I stood in the middle of the room, holding the phone loosely. My mother didn't mean harm, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. I was starting to see the shape of it now. This wasn't about one event. It was about a lifetime of being the afterthought, the one expected to yield, to adjust. I walked slowly toward the terrace again, needing air. The breeze had picked up slightly. The sound of the waves felt louder, sharper. I looked out over the horizon and let one deep breath fill my lungs. They didn't know me. Not really. Not the version of me who had built this life, this home, not the version who had made peace with being small until now. Enough, I said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply final. And that was when the memory I'd been avoiding came crashing back with a force I couldn't ignore. I didn't sit down. Instead, I stood in the hallway just outside the kitchen, the cold tile against my feet, grounding me as the memory unfolded, uninvited and unrelenting. I was 17 back in Riverside, my first time organizing something for myself, a tiny backyard birthday hangout. Nothing fancy. A few friends from school, string lights borrowed from the garage, pizza and soda. I remember how excited I was to plan it, how proud I felt doing it on my own. And then 3 days before, I came home from school to find a note on the fridge. Family going to Ashley's baby shower Saturday, birthday gathering canceled. Rain check? No signature, no explanation, just taped up like a grocery list. I didn't even know they'd discussed it. Ashley was our second cousin, someone I barely knew. Apparently, the family had decided that her baby shower mattered more than my birthday. I still remember standing there, staring at that note, while the fridge hummed and my backpack dug into my shoulder. I didn't cry, I just folded. I told my friends it was postponed, never rescheduled it. That was the first time I felt like a placeholder, like I could be moved or removed without notice. Back in the present, my phone buzzed against the counter, dragging me back. I picked it up and saw Taryn's name flashing in the group chat. It was a voice message. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice rang out, overly bright and polished. "Hey everyone, just wanted to say how thrilled I am for Saturday night. We locked in a rooftop place. Mom's mother-in-law is gonna love it. Formal dress code, just so you know. Can't wait to see everyone there." Then her tone changed, still sweet, but pointed. "Oh, and Aria, since your wedding plans are flexible anyway, hope you can join us to celebrate something really meaningful." I blinked. Did she really say that? Something really meaningful. That's how she described it, out loud, on record. The family chat started lighting up with hearts and thumbs up. No one questioned it, no one paused. Another ping. Taryn again, this time tagging me. "Just confirming Aria's okay with rescheduling her wedding. Thanks for being understanding, sis. You're the best." The message hit me like a slap I'd already braced for, but it still stung. Rescheduling my wedding. Publicly. As if it were brunch. I stared at the screen, the light from it painting my face in pale blue. The longer I looked, the quieter I felt inside. This wasn't confusion anymore. It was something colder. Like a silence I'd swallowed too many times had finally settled into my bones. I didn't type anything. I didn't even breathe. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter. When did I teach them I didn't matter? The question came so quietly, I almost missed it. But it echoed. Louder than the waves outside, louder than Taryn's voice message, louder than anything. It wasn't self-pity. It was clarity. I hadn't made space for myself, not really. I'd worked around them. I'd lowered my voice, my needs. And in doing so, I'd written my own script. Aria adjusts. Aria yields. Aria won't mind. And now they believed it more than I did. The phone buzzed again. A call this time. "Mom." I hesitated, then answered. Her voice was tentative, unsure. "Sweetheart, I think you should know something before it becomes complicated." I stayed silent, letting her speak. "We made reservations for the dinner 2 months ago. Taryn didn't want to bring it up until things were settled on your end. She said you might be flexible." The words pressed down on me slowly. Not sudden, not loud, just heavy. 2 months. That's how long they'd known. That's how long they'd been planning around me. I didn't respond right away. Mom's voice softened. "Are you upset?" I swallowed. "No." Another pause. "Are you angry?" I finally answered, and for once, I didn't lie. "I'm tired." The silence that followed was unfamiliar. It wasn't tense. It was stunned. She whispered, "Okay." We ended the call a moment later, politely, like nothing was wrong. I placed the phone face down on the counter, and then I walked into my office and opened my laptop. I didn't send any messages. I didn't call Mikkel. I just started reviewing the guest list, opening spreadsheets, looking at deposits, adjusting numbers, shifting plans, not to cancel, not to accommodate, but to take control. Something clicked into place, not a grand gesture, just a quiet, undeniable shift. Later that afternoon, I went into the guest bedroom, the one with the cedar-lined closet, and opened the old shoebox I hadn't touched in years. I dug through old letters, high school ticket stubs, a faded corsage, and there it was, a silver seashell charm, barely the size of a dime. I bought it at a beachside shop in Laguna the same week my 17th birthday was canceled. I remembered telling myself, one day, I'll celebrate near the ocean, even if it's just me. I held it between my fingers, warm from the light coming through the window. And just when I thought I had finally understood the full extent of their disregard, something happened that cut deeper than all the memories combined. It started the moment I opened my eyes. The air was still, the morning light soft against the walls of my bedroom, but something felt wrong before I even touched my phone. I reached for it slowly, already knowing it wouldn't be good. The group chat was lit up with images, color palettes, tablescapes, outfit inspirations. Taryn was in full event mode. My eyes scanned through the endless flurry of messages, peach and sage green themes, plated dinners, hand-calligraphed name cards. My name wasn't on any of them. Not one table had a spot marked Aria. I scrolled back up, thinking maybe I missed it. Nope, I was nowhere. So I asked lightly, "I don't see my name. Am I in a different section?" Taryn replied within seconds, like she'd been waiting. "Oh, I totally forgot you were coming. I thought you'd be busy preparing your whatever plans." Whatever plans. The words hit sharper than I expected. I stared at them longer than I should have. No one said anything. No one defended me. Just a few awkward reaction emojis. A sad face. A thumbs up. A heart, for some reason. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That silence in me, the one that used to feel like surrender, now felt different. Not heavier, cleaner. I closed the app. I left my phone on the kitchen counter and walked slowly through my villa. Morning light poured in through the glass walls, the sound of the ocean rolling just beyond the cliffs. Normally, this calmed me. Today, it clarified things. This space, this life, I built it. Without them. Without their approval or support or celebration. Every piece of furniture, every inch of calm was mine. And I realized something. Maybe this wasn't just a home. Maybe it was power. The kind they didn't even know I had. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed again. I almost didn't check. But curiosity got the better of me. Lennox, my cousin, the quiet one. He rarely chimed in on family drama. He usually ducked out of it altogether. I picked up, surprised. "Hey," he hesitated. "Can you talk for a sec?" "Sure." There was a pause. I wasn't sure if I should even say anything, but I think you should know. Taryn's been saying stuff about your wedding." "What kind of stuff?" "She's telling people you're not serious about it, that you're using the whole thing for attention, that you're moving the date around because you have nothing else going on." I didn't speak. My pulse slowed, not from shock, but confirmation. Lennox exhaled. "There's more. I think you should hear this." Then the message came in, a forwarded voice memo. I stared at it, then hit play. Taryn's voice, bright and smug, crackled through the speaker. "Aria doesn't really have friends. Who's even coming to her wedding? Honestly, moving the date is the best thing for everyone. It's not like her event will be huge anyway." My hand tightened around the edge of the counter. Not sadness, not even rage. It was something else. Something colder. I played it again, then once more. Not because I needed to hear it. I understood her the first time, but I needed to let it soak through, to feel it settle into the parts of me that still, foolishly, held on to the idea she might change, might care. "So this is what she thinks of me." I whispered it out loud. It didn't echo, it didn't hang, it just landed. I deleted the message, not to forget, but to stop giving it space. I didn't write back to Lennox. I didn't say thank you or anything at all. I knew he'd understand. Instead, I opened the group chat again, this time with a different lens. I scrolled past the memes, the seating plans, the stream of passive responses. Then I closed the app for good this time. Not permanently, not dramatically, just emotionally. I stepped out. I sat down at my dining table, the same one that overlooked the water. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder labeled Wedding. Click by click, I made changes. I removed family names from the list, added upgrades to the catering, custom lighting, extended guest outreach. I called my coordinator, her voice perky as always. "Hey, Aria, are we still calling this a wedding rehearsal or—" I smiled, but not kindly. "No, this is something else." She didn't ask further, just took notes. Later that evening, with the sun casting soft gold across my hardwood floor, I walked into my bedroom, opened the dresser drawer, and pulled out the silver seashell charm. The one I'd kept since 17. The one that used to mean you're alone. I carried it back to the table and set it down next to my coffee mug. This time, it meant something different. I wasn't invisible. I was re-emerging. But before I could take even one step forward with my new plan, Taryn did something that made everything far, far worse. I should have known the quiet wouldn't last. The moment I tried to steady myself, everything tipped again. I barely slept that night. I drifted in and out, staring at the ceiling, while the last thing I heard, Taryn's voice calling my villa that stupid beach rental, looped in my mind. Even after deleting the message, it lived somewhere deeper, replaying itself without permission. When dawn finally came, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like leftover night. I pushed myself out of bed and moved slowly through the house. I didn't bother turning on lights. The sun did just enough. I made coffee, not because I wanted it, but because habit carried me through the motions. The machine hummed, the cup warmed my hand, but none of it reached me. I opened the curtains and stepped toward the balcony, hoping the ocean would help the way it usually did. The waves were steady, calm, reliable. I wasn't. I held the railing and whispered, "Breathe," but even the air felt heavy. My phone was on the kitchen counter. I'd left it there on purpose. I didn't want it close. I didn't want anything close. Still, I walked back inside and checked it, some part of me hoping, despite everything, that someone might have reached out. There was nothing, no apology, no explanation, not even a question asking if I was okay. Just silence. That same silence I'd grown up with, where my feelings only mattered if they kept someone else comfortable. And suddenly, without warning, that old familiar doubt crept in. Is this my fault? Did I teach them I was easy to overlook? I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. I told myself I needed space, that I'd step outside and walk the beach, maybe clear my head. But instead of grabbing my shoes, I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, knees pulled close. I wasn't crying, I wasn't shaking, I just couldn't move. The weight inside me pressed down so hard I felt pinned. Minutes passed, maybe longer. The house was silent except for the faint echo of the surf below the cliffs. Then my phone buzzed, just one vibration. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I picked it up and stared at the new message from my mother. Family vote. We've decided to host a combined celebration for both events, Taryn's mother-in-law's birthday and a small acknowledgement of your wedding. That way, everyone gets included. I froze. A combined celebration. My wedding, folded into a birthday party for someone who wasn't even related to me. My hands trembled. I felt my heartbeat in my throat, fast and uneven. Notifications popped up beneath hers. Thumbs up from Rowan. A heart from an aunt. Someone added, "This is easier. Weddings can be so stressful." Easier, stressful. Like my wedding was a burden. I sat back against the wall, staring at the screen, feeling the strength in my legs fade until I had to lower myself more gently to the floor. For a brief moment, just a sliver, I heard a "Zuh" voice in my head telling me to accept it, to go along, like always. "It's fine," I whispered to myself. "It's just a date. It's just one event. Maybe I'm being difficult." The familiarity of those words scared me. Shrinking felt so natural, so practiced. I closed my eyes. Then another buzz. A picture popped up in the group chat, sent by Taryn. At first, I couldn't tell what it was. Then I realized it was a screenshot of a private text thread. She'd forwarded it by mistake. The text on her screen was unmistakably hers. "That stupid beach rental Arya wastes her money on." Followed by another message she'd typed to someone else. "She won't say anything. She never does. She's too soft to stand up for herself. I heard the blood rush in my ears. The chat went dead silent. No one reacted. No one defended me. No one asked if I'd seen it. The humiliation was so sharp it felt physical. I set the phone down, not gently this time, and let my head fall into my hands. A sound left me I didn't recognize, somewhere between a breath and a sob, and then I cried. Not quietly, not carefully. Not the polite tears I'd learned to shed over the years, the ones that didn't disturb anybody. No, these tears were full, shaking, unrestrained. Tears that came from years of swallowed words, years of being overlooked, years of pretending things didn't hurt when they did. What broke me wasn't the insult. It was the truth that lived inside it. She's too soft to stand up for herself. For so long, I had made that true. I don't know how long I stayed there. Eventually, the sobs softened, the air steadied, and I took a long, shaky breath. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my shirt. No more. The words were small, but they were real. I pushed myself off the floor and walked toward the balcony again. My legs felt weak, but I kept going until I reached the open doorway. The breeze was louder now, the waves hitting the rocks with a strength I hadn't noticed earlier. Unapologetic, unfiltered, unmoved by approval. I leaned against the railing, letting the wind hit my face, salty and cold. Something inside me shifted, just slightly, but enough to feel. I wasn't ready to fight yet, but I wasn't bowing anymore. Somewhere behind me, my phone buzzed again, and I had no idea that while I was finally finding my voice, Taryn was already preparing a move that would hit harder than anything she'd done before. That morning felt different. I didn't bounce out of bed or stretch with renewed hope. It wasn't that kind of morning, but the ache inside me wasn't as sharp. After the kind of crying that empties your whole body, there's a strange stillness that follows, like a room that's been cleared out. I stood under the hot water in the shower longer than usual, letting it run down my back, imagining it rinsing off every layered insult, every name I'd swallowed instead of screamed. By the time I stepped out and pulled my hair into a low knot, there was a certain steadiness in my chest. I wasn't fixed, but I was no longer trying to disappear either. The sun was already high when I slid on my sandals and grabbed my keys. For the first time in days, I left the villa, not to escape it, but to reconnect with something that used to bring me peace. The drive into town was short, just 15 minutes along the cliffside road. I parked near the little cafe I used to frequent during the early renovation days, before the contractors, before the permits, before the wedding plans took over everything. Back then, it was just me and a blueprint, dreaming about a space that felt like mine. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the edge of the patio, where the breeze carried that salty, stubborn ocean scent. It reminded me that life kept moving, even when people tried to hold you in place. For a few minutes, I let myself enjoy it. I sipped slowly, phone face down, sunglasses on. I watched the sea flicker and forgot about the weight waiting for me back home. But peace, I've learned, doesn't last long when someone senses they're losing control of you. I picked up my phone to check the time, and that's when I saw it. A new message in the family group chat, from Taryn. It read, "Should we tell the restaurant Aria won't be there? She tends to ruin the vibe." Followed by, "She'll probably cry or make it about her wedding again." I didn't move, just stared. Ruin the vibe? I hadn't even said a word since the voice note. I hadn't pushed back, hadn't complained, hadn't made any public fuss. And yet, this was how she framed me. The cruelty wasn't just behind my back anymore. It was shameless now, almost theatrical. Like she needed to perform her control of the narrative, even if it meant risking how others might view her. A few cousins dropped those awkward little emojis, shrugs, side eyes, even a laugh reaction. No one said, That's enough. No one said, "This is wrong." My mother replied after a pause. "Taryn, please be careful what you send here. Be careful, not, don't say that about your sister. Not, that was unkind. Just, watch what you say, not how you treat someone." That was the moment something shifted deep inside me, not with more tears, with resolve. I scrolled for a second, then typed, "I won't be attending the dinner. Please proceed without me." I hit send, and for the first time, my fingers didn't shake. Taryn replied almost instantly, her tone suddenly breezy. "Oh, well, okay then. Just asking because we need final numbers." I didn't respond. My silence wasn't silence anymore. It was a decision. I paid for my coffee and stepped out onto the sidewalk, feeling that subtle pull to go to the water. Not because I needed to hide, but because I needed to think clearly. The pier wasn't far, and I walked along the edge of the beach barefoot, letting the waves lap around my ankles. The tide was gentle, rhythmic. Every few steps I let the water tug at me, then release me again, like it was reminding me, take what serves you. Let go of what doesn't. Start again. By the time I got back to my car, my hair was windblown and there was sand in my sandals, but I felt like my mind had sharpened. I wasn't just going to stay away from the dinner, I was going to reclaim something they never gave me. Ownership of my story. On the drive home, I passed the restaurant where the dinner was being planned. I didn't mean to look, but something about the tall windows pulled my eyes in, and that's when I saw her, Taryn, standing near the host's stand, pointing at a chart, smiling with that performative charm she used so well. I couldn't hear her voice, but I didn't need to. Her body language said enough, relaxed, confident, in control. My stomach twisted, but instead of driving past, I parked a little down the block. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, told me to go inside. The place was half empty. I walked in quietly, staying near the edge where the bar met the dining area. Taryn didn't see me. I overheard the host asking, "And the sister? Should we place her near?" Taryn cut him off with a casual flick of her hand. No, don't worry about her. She's barely part of the family anyway." Barely part of the family. It landed harder than any message, harder than the voice notes, the texts, the accidental screenshots, because it wasn't whispered, it wasn't hidden. It was said out loud, like it was truth. I stepped forward. The floor felt steady beneath me, even as everything inside me burned. She turned, and for the first time in a long time, I watched her face actually change. Color drained. Her smile dropped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just said, clearly and quietly, "Next time you talk about me, make sure you're willing to say it to my face." The host blinked, caught in the middle. Taryn chuckled, forced. "Aria, you're taking things way too personally." I tilted my head slightly. "No, I'm just finally paying attention." And I walked out. Back at the villa, I didn't crumble. I didn't even sit down right away. I walked straight to the room where my wedding folder was, opened it, then closed it. None of this, none of what I was planning, felt right anymore. I called my event coordinator. "Hi," I said. "We're going to shift direction." She paused. "Okay. Do you want to postpone?" "No, I want to rebuild. Remove the timeline, remove the rehearsal dinner, replace everything with a celebration that reflects my life, my real life." Another pause. "Same venue?" "Yes, but upgrade everything." I stood there for a moment after we hung up, the late afternoon sun casting soft light across the marble floor. I wasn't just planning an event now, I was reclaiming space, my space. And it was only the beginning, but the moment I finally pushed back, Taryn escalated in a way I never imagined, because she wasn't just losing control, she was getting desperate. But the moment I finally pushed back, Taryn escalated in a way I never imagined, because she wasn't just losing control, she was getting desperate. That truth settled over me the next morning as sunlight slipped into my bedroom. I lay there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, letting the memory of yesterday replay. Taryn waving me off at the restaurant like I barely existed. It should have shattered me. A year ago, it would have. But instead, it clarified something. People who feel their power slipping don't step back. They double down. And Taryn was the type who clenched harder the moment she sensed resistance. So I got out of bed, made coffee, and braced myself. I didn't know in what form the next hit would come, but I knew her well enough to expect it. It arrived 30 minutes later. My phone lit up with a long, overly cheerful message in the group chat from Taryn, wrapped in the kind of sugary tone she reserved for damage control. "Aria, I'm so sorry if anything I said yesterday came out wrong. You know how overwhelmed I get planning things. Love you so much, sis." Heart emojis. A selfie with her tilted head and bright smile. Too bright. Then relatives chimed in, like an orchestra following its conductor. "Don't take it to heart, Aria." "She didn't mean it, sweetheart." You know how Taryn gets when she's stressed. Their responses wrapped around me like thick, stale air. This wasn't comfort. This wasn't reconciliation. This was a cover-up, a collective smoothing over, protecting her, not me. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the chat fully. I was about to put the phone down when it buzzed again, but this time it was a private message from Taryn, and the tone was different. "You better not embarrass me like that again. Stay out of my way on Saturday. Don't ruin the dinner." Another message followed before I could blink. "Honestly, Aria, grow up. This is why nobody takes you seriously." I let the words sit on the screen, burning in their simplicity. There she was, the version of her only I ever saw. Cruel, sharp, certain of her dominion. My first instinct was to reply, to confront her directly. But something in me said no, not this time. I deleted the conversation, not to erase it, but to free my mind. I didn't need proof. I had lived the pattern long enough, and I knew silence, real silence, was the one language she'd never learned to interpret. Around noon, just when I thought the day might quiet a little, my mother called. Not a text, not a voicemail. A call. I answered, already preparing myself. "We're worried about you, sweetheart." There it was, the tone soft, the concern performative. "Worried?" I asked gently. "Well," she hesitated. "Taryn says you've been acting distant and difficult. Are you sure you're not overreacting?" Overreacting. The script I'd heard since I was a kid, the reflex they used whenever I dared to feel anything they didn't approve of. I let her talk. I didn't defend myself. I didn't remind her of the insults, the exclusions, the weeks of being treated like background noise. I simply listened until she gave the line I knew was coming. "It's just, we all think your wedding timing has caused unnecessary tension. Maybe if you adjusted, just a little, there wouldn't be all this drama." Drama, tension, caused by me. Something inside me finally stopped bending. "I'm not adjusting anything for you," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "Not anymore." A long, brittle silence filled the line. "Honey, don't start," she whispered, but I wasn't starting anything. I was ending something. After we hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at the water. The waves were rolling in stronger than usual, crashing against the rocks with a rhythm that felt almost personal. Sadness washed over me first, the kind that sits heavy behind your ribs. My mother chose what was easy, not what was right. It hurt, but it wasn't shocking. Not anymore. And beneath the sadness, strength. A different kind of strength than anger or pride. A strength that came from finally choosing myself. I sat at the dining table and opened my laptop. The planning documents were still there, the florals, the menus, the guest arrangements. But instead of feeling overwhelmed or small, I felt focused. I upgraded the catering, added a live string quartet, approved the lighting design I'd hesitated on last week. Then I clicked on the photography package and selected the premium option, same-day edited photos. Not to flaunt anything, but because I wanted my celebration, whatever shape it took, to feel complete, documented, real, and maybe, on some level, I wanted my family to see that I wasn't disappearing. I was building something they could no longer touch. Later in the afternoon, I opened the velvet box where I kept the silver seashell charm, the one from my 17th birthday, the one I bought after Taryn had my party canceled, so the family could attend a cousin's baby shower. Back then, the charm had felt like a consolation prize for being forgotten. Now, holding it in my palm, I felt something else, a promise, a reminder that even as a teenager, I had dreamed of a life shaped by my own choices, my own ocean. I placed the charm inside a new velvet pouch and tied it with a thin ribbon. I would wear it at my celebration, not as a symbol of being overlooked, but as proof that I had survived being minimized and still learned to stand tall. I was about to close my laptop when my phone buzzed again. Another message, from Taryn. But this one would shift everything. Just when I thought I had finally taken control of my story, she unleashed something I never saw coming. Something designed not just to hurt me, but to destroy me. Because the moment a bully realizes you're no longer afraid, they panic. Because the moment a bully realizes you're no longer afraid, they panic. I felt it before anything happened. This quiet, pressing tension in my chest that I couldn't name, like the stillness before a storm, the kind you feel in your bones before the wind even shifts. It was Saturday evening. I had just finished reviewing the timeline for tomorrow's photo session at the villa. No chaos, no texts, no obligations, just me, in my space, finally reclaiming it. I wasn't planning on attending Taryn's dinner for her mother-in-law, not because I was avoiding anyone, but because I didn't need to show up for a performance I never agreed to be part of. But that pressure in my chest, it kept growing, and when my phone rang, I already knew who it was. Aria! My mother's voice was strained. I could hear background noise, voices, clinking dishes, someone saying something sharply in the distance. Your sister she's very worked up tonight, she said. My hand clenched around the phone. And? Maybe you should come, she added too quickly. Just show face, keep the peace. The peace? I almost laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I said nothing, and that's when the alert came through. A message in the family group chat. There were images attached. I tapped it open, even though my gut already told me to brace. Photos, me and Darren, my ex, from years ago. Ones I hadn't seen in almost a decade. One of them was from the night I found out he was cheating, taken moments before the confrontation. My face, naive, unaware. His arm around me like we were still okay. My stomach twisted. The caption under the photos. Sometimes people rush weddings because they're scared of ending up alone again. And then a laughing emoji. From Taryn. It landed like a knife in the middle of my chest. Not because of Darren, not even because of the photos, but because she chose to dig up my pain and parade it. On purpose, publicly, strategically. Silence followed in the chat. A few confused emoji reactions. One aunt replied, "What is this about?" Then nothing. No one defended me. No one removed it. No one said, "Taryn, that's cruel." I sat there in stillness. But I didn't cry. I didn't pace the room or scream or break things. I whispered, "That's enough." Then I stood, walked calmly to my closet, picked a white linen dress, simple, elegant. I tied my hair back, slipped on gold earrings, and opened the small velvet pouch where I had tucked away the silver seashell charm. I fastened it around my neck. It rested lightly against my collarbone, soft but solid. Then I grabbed my keys. No words, no announcements, just movement. The drive to the restaurant was short, maybe 15 minutes, but my heartbeat was steady, not frantic. Every second felt purposeful. As I pulled into the rooftop restaurant's parking lot, I could see the event in full swing through the glass railings. Laughter, chatter, plates, clinking. They were celebrating, toasting. I walked toward the entrance without slowing. As I stepped into the space, heads turned. A few voices dropped. One cousin nudged another. Even the server near the bar hesitated. And then I saw her. Taryn. She was mid-sentence, laughing with someone at the head table, drink in hand. Her eyes met mine, and I watched the color drain from her face. She stepped back like she'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, low but audible. I didn't flinch. "Finishing this." She stiffened but forced a laugh, louder this time, performative. "Aria, if this is about the photos, relax. Everyone already knew you're the unstable one." And there it was, that word. Unstable. Said with a smile, said to an audience, said to strip me down in public and make me small. I saw my mother's face go pale. I heard murmurs. Someone whispered my name. An older cousin looked away. Taryn thought she had delivered the final blow, but she miscalculated. I pulled my phone from my bag slowly. My hand didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. "If you're done performing," I said calmly, "I'll share the rest of the messages you accidentally sent." The word accidentally hung in the air like smoke. Taryn blinked. "What are you talking about?" I held the phone like a mirror. "The ones where you said I wasn't really family, and the one where you mocked Mom's house, and your husband's job, and at least half the people sitting in this room." The room shifted. I felt it like a gust of wind, gasps. Aunt Denise put her fork down. My uncle muttered, "Wait, what?" Taryn opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't give her the chance to spin it. I slipped the phone back into my bag and added, "I'm done letting you define me. I'm done shrinking for you, and I'm done protecting you from your own behavior." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. That silence, the real kind, told me everything. My mother didn't interrupt. No one rushed to smooth it over. They just sat with it. I turned, walked through the restaurant, past the tables, the stunned faces, and out into the night air. The breeze off the ocean wrapped around me like a balm. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had arrived as the girl they always underestimated. I left as a woman they no longer recognized, and they never saw it coming. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors of the villa, soft and golden. I opened my eyes slowly, letting the warmth settle on my skin before even thinking about getting up. The room was still, no buzzing phone, no tension wrapped around my chest. Just quiet. I hadn't slept like that in years. There was a hum in the air, something gentle but certain. Not adrenaline, not fear. Just the solid thrum of peace. I brewed coffee the way I used to before everything fell apart. Fresh ground beans, slow pour, silence all around. Then I carried my mug out onto the balcony, barefoot, the Pacific glimmering beneath a soft morning haze. The ocean didn't care about last night. It just kept moving, steady and infinite. And for the first time, I let myself feel it. Pride. Not because I proved anyone wrong, but because I finally chose myself. Around 10, the sound of car doors and voices broke the quiet. My event planner and her team arrived, full of energy and calm coordination. They knew the plan. We'd walked through it earlier in the week. Tonight wasn't a wedding, not anymore. It was something else, something entirely mine. I watched from the balcony as string lights were unfurled, tables dressed in linen, chairs arranged to face the ocean. The floral arches went up just beyond the pool, framing the view of the coastline like a living painting. The scent of peonies and eucalyptus drifted into the house. This was nothing like the events I grew up around, loud, chaotic, built on obligation and image. This was intentional, peaceful. Every detail whispered dignity. By early afternoon, the first guests began arriving. Not family, not the people who measured worth in hierarchy and guilt. Friends, real ones. Clients I had worked with for years who had become part of my life in the most organic ways. A neighbor I had helped through her divorce. A former colleague who now ran her own nonprofit. A couple I'd met at a retreat who drove all the way down from Monterey just to be here. They didn't ask questions, they didn't pry. They hugged me, brought wine, complimented the view, and told me, "You look at peace." And I did. I changed into the dress an hour before golden hour, a soft cream, sleeveless, with a flowing skirt that moved when I walked but never clung. Simple, confident. The seashell charm hung around my neck, catching the last of the day's light, a quiet symbol of something that had transformed with me. The photographer arrived with her assistant, and we began near the cliffs, just before the sky turned amber. She didn't pose me much, just let me walk barefoot through the sand, laugh with my friends, raise a glass, and sit in stillness as the wind moved through my hair. Every photo felt like a breath. They weren't for anyone but me, not proof, not performance, just presence. When the sun kissed the horizon, I opened my phone. No nerves, no hesitation. I uploaded 4 images. Me on the balcony, smiling, candid of friends laughing, a champagne toast, the ocean glowing behind us, and a final shot of me, backlit by the setting sun, alone and grounded. The caption? "Thank you for today." That was it. No subtext, no jabs, no explanations, just truth. Within minutes, the notifications started. Messages, comments, calls. But I didn't check them right away. I stayed in the moment, refilling glasses, hugging shoulders, slipping into laughter that didn't come from obligation. When the last guest left, just before midnight, I returned to my phone. The screen lit up like a lighthouse in the dark. The family chat had exploded, confused messages, questions, a flurry of surprise at the villa, at the photos, at the people. Taryn had messaged me privately. "Why didn't you tell anyone you had a place like that?" I didn't answer. A few minutes later, Rowan dropped a single sentence into the group thread. "Aria, looks amazing. Congratulations." That one made me smile. And then a private message from my mother. "I didn't realize you had so much going on. I'm proud of you. I wish I had known." I sat with that one. It didn't come with an apology, but it came with something else. Maybe the first real acknowledgement in my entire life that I wasn't just a satellite orbiting around other people's needs. I didn't cry, but I let the weight of that settle somewhere deep inside me. Not for her, but for the girl I used to be, who waited years for someone to say something like that. The villa was quiet again. I walked slowly through it, touching the backs of chairs, blowing out candles, trailing my hand along the windowsill. And then I stood on the balcony again, barefoot, looking out at the darkened coastline. The seashell charm rested against my collarbone. I held it between my fingers. It wasn't about being forgotten anymore. It was about what I had chosen to remember, and what I had chosen to let go. My phone buzzed once more. A text from Taryn. "Can we talk?" I stared at it. The version of me from before, the one who used to say yes out of hope or guilt or fear, she would have replied in a second. But I wasn't her anymore. I whispered softly, "Got it." Not as a reply, but as an understanding. I turned the phone face down. The ocean called me back. So I went. No longer the one who needed to be seen, just the one who had finally learned how to see herself.